You're listening to Rookie Pirate Radio, the official anime and manga podcast for InBetweenDrafts.com. I'm John Negroni.
And I'm Travis Hymas.
And today we're doing a manga recap of One Piece chapter 1112, titled Hard Aspects. And Travis, the only hard aspect about recording this podcast is that sometimes we have break weeks, and sometimes I'm on vacation.
Yeah, and sometimes I have a job.
But as I alluded to before we started recording, the Joy Boys are back in town. And when I said that, you, of course, responded with, you know...
That's so good.
I think part of you, though, was just like, you know, maybe you felt a little bad that you're like, well, we're not very joyous boys, not after this chapter.
I mean, I am nervous boy, if anything. I'm sweating bullets.
Yeah, nerve boy, whatever that needs to be. As usual, we're going to be discussing spoilers for the One Piece manga up until this point. So if you have not yet read chapter 1112, be sure to do so now for free on the Viz website of the Shonen Jump app, linked in the show notes as always. And remember, all new One Piece chapters are available to read for free up to 3 weeks after their official release, or whenever you want, if you are subscribed to Shonen Jump, which we are and do recommend. We do have a listener question. This is from somebody with a mustache. Their username is Not John, and their question is, let's see here. Hey, John, this is Not John, real person. I have been curious of a way to avoid spoilers for the One Piece manga because I always want to read them fresh. The problem is I don't have anything to distract me. I could use an app, preferably one that's purple-coded but not Twitch, that could allow me to waste hours and hours talking about One Piece theories, film, TV, books, and the universe of a website that might exist in one place. Unfortunately, I don't like social media apps as they are. Can you recommend anything? And of course, I responded to this listener that no, I can't. I'm not aware of anything like that, but I just wanted to raise it to you, Travis, if you had any, because I know you're in the dark web. You know all the illegal stuff.
Yeah, I keep my nose to the ground. I stay appraised of all of the crimes that are happening.
You literally wear a black hat. Sometimes.
Literally, sometimes. I look like I could be a member of Cypherpole even. But I think I got nothing for you on this. I mean, that's a really tall ask. A place where you could do all of those things, which weirdly enough is like everything we cover on InBetweenDrafts.com too. So it'd be a really convenient thing. You know, I'm not really. Oh, sorry.
Is that a pigeon on your shoulder trying to whisper something to you?
Yeah. What? I don't even have a pigeon. I don't know where this came from. Oh, yeah. Oh, duh. Of course. Yeah. The pigeon has informed me that there is an app called Discord. I was confused because like the icon's usually like a light bluish, so it's kind of purple, but not super purple coded. So I was completely thinking of something else entirely. Discord is an app where you can join the In Between Draft server and do all of those things you talked about. Talk about One Piece theories, talk about the series general, other anime, manga, books, TV, and more. It's all right there, and you're never going to believe it. The pigeon is telling me that it's linked in the show notes.
The only thing about that I don't understand or find agreeable is this idea that the Discord app is blue-coded.
It's blue-coded. It's blue-coded.
No,
that's...
I refuse.
That's a bluish. That's definitely a bluish.
That's purple. Well, I think what we agree on at least is that we have to raise it, of course, to all the fun folks on our In Between Drafts Discord and let us know if they agree or disagree. Are they team John or are they team Travis? Are they team Joy or team Boy? That's what it comes down to.
Oh, there we go. At least it rhymes. Yeah, but I would recommend that to Not John, who of course is not related to John at all. Clearly, you can tell by the name and the way that it is. But also, you know, Not John said he was a little nervous there, John, that he doesn't like social media-esque things. Is there anything else he could do
I don't know, because he sent an email to my personal, and I mean that's a little bit much. I mean, I've got stuff on there.
That? Yeah, how did he even get that? That's a little creepy. Oh, you know what? We could have our own email, and Oh, what if we called it the name of the show and it was something like Rookie Pirate Radio at gmail.com?
Oh, for some reason, I thought you were going to say, the John Negroni Show at gmail.com. Oh.
That's a different
That's better. That's better. Rookie Pirate Radio.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and so if we were to do it, it would be Rookie Pirate Radio at gmail.com.
What? Rookie Pirate? What? Slow down, Travis. I can't keep up with your
I'm putting
Abraham
it in right
Lincoln
now.
speech
I'm
over there.
putting it in right now. Rookie Pirate Radio at gmail.com. And I'm being told that we already own this email address.
For over a year? Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's...
Our producer, Rookie D. Pirate, sure is upset. No wonder he turned into a pirate. Or into a pigeon.
Yeah.
Well, both.
Oh, we almost got all the way through the bit. We almost got there. But yes, that email does exist if you want to, correct our theories or ask questions like Not John did, and I assume real questions as well.
Well, now that we're 6 minutes in, I think it is about that time to talk about the chapter. What do you think, Travis?
I think we've tortured them enough.
That's right. And speaking of torture, we have another episode of the cover series. The torture, of course, being Yamato torturing Kinemon in some way, which you'll have to see. So, okay, we saw Yamato already in the previous, being like, I want to go travel, Wano, like Odin did. And now Yamato is celebrating because Kinemon has given her some kind of parting gift, which looks like a payment of some kind. But he's also lecturing Yamato that, you can have this parting gift, Yamato, as long as you do something for me. It looks like they're in the flower capital, but we're not sure what that favor necessarily is. We also don't know if Yamato's going to be going alone or if Yamato's going to be going with the Shogun, as it were. We'll find out. Of course, this is Ogre Child, Yamato's Golden Harvest Surrogate Pilgrimage, Volume 3. I forgot to mention that part. Very fun. Very fun. All right, so the chapter begins a little bit where we picked off. I mean, we dropped off in like so many places in the last chapter. There's chaos everywhere, and so it takes a while for Oda just to kind of check in a little bit with the state of things. We start with Nusujuro, who is the one with the sword and the horse legs. And Nusujuro also has like you can really see it clearly now, like the awakened black cloud reef. But anyway, we find out that his attacks on all the pacifistas, last we checked in, he was freezing them and basically one-shotting them. And he's finished them off. We already found out that he already did half of them in the last chapter, and minutes are passing. They're gone at this point. And the Marines are also trying to, they're keeping up the Buster Call at this point. So the island, Egghead, is just getting blown up like crazy. And then we have Nishiro responding to somebody, I think it was a Marine, who's saying, whatever you do, stop Jewelry Bonnie from leaving. And he remarks that, the fact that she was only 12 years old and was given the power over the pacifistas, which could allow her basically to level an entire country, is definitely, the Gorosei are not happy with Vegapunk. That's for sure, for allowing this stuff to happen. We check in with the two giants. I forget their names, Oishi and I always forget these guys, the Ogre boys. Do you remember their names?
Oimo and Kashi, I want to say.
Oimo, not Oishi. Yeah, it's something like that. I put their names together. Maybe I'm going to keep doing like the Oishi giants, the tasty giants.
There you go.
But yeah, they're trying to get back to the ship. The Marines are also trying to sink the giant ship so they can't escape. And then we cut back to, if you remember, Franky and Bonnie got headed off by a couple of vice admirals. And then Franky, in a move that it will go down in Franky history, basically one-shots Red King. It looks like he uses a move called Steam Strong Right, and which I believe he's used before. It's like a version of Strong Right.
So this is actually, the steam is on Red King's arm, so they're about to punch together.
I thought Franky was combining. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, which makes it even cooler because that means this is just a Strong Right.
Yeah, it's not even a special move. And for all the Franky haters, let's not forget, he ran over Big Mom once. Like, he's got the juice. He's got the cola. Right after that happens, the Oishi giants are taking care of Kuma while Bonnie gets her licks in on one of the vice admirals. She turns, it's one of the ones we don't know that much about, I forget his name, but she turns one of them into a kid and then knocks them out. So yeah, some Franky, Bonnie, it's like one Straw Hat and a future Straw Hat teaming up together. That's what it looks like to me. I don't know about you, Travis. But then we go back to the broadcast, and we're still just minutes away at this point. I think we're like 1 minute away by the end of the chapter, and we are checking in with Itsumade and York. They have made it to where the message was recorded, but they don't know where the broadcast is actually coming from at this point. And Itsumade wants to just kind of blow everything up, but York is like, no, you can't, because then you're going to destroy, a lot of important things. The power plant on the first floor will cause like a chain reaction. There are these pressurized gas cylinders. Like York kind of lays it on thick that they cannot blow up punk records. It's too valuable to them. But of course, the Gorosei are kind of frustrated at this point because they need to figure out where there's like a special den mushi that York describes that they do need to find, because that's supposedly where the broadcast is coming from. And then we have Itsumade saying they sense the voice of a small creature, and that might be where the transponder snail is. So we then cut to Stussy and Kaku. So they're still in the control room, and Stussy has willfully stayed behind while Kaku was just left behind. And Stussy is kind of we have some death flags for Stussy. Stussy is looking like to be the sacrificial, like, I'm going to stay behind because somebody needs to bring the Frontier Dome down in order to allow the Straw Hats to escape. And that can only be done manually. It can't be done remotely. And Kaku is just kind of stuck there too. It's looking like both of them might die or be captured, is just as likely, if not more likely. But then, yeah, so they're going to probably be left behind at this point. Straw Hats are upset about it, but they're like, yeah, but we do have to go. And then they are still trying to figure out how they're going to get the Sunny out, and they don't have the Vega Force 1, which we're reminded of. And so that's obviously an issue. And they're still waiting for Zoro and Jinbei. So at this point, Edison actually decides to go through the Frontier Dome in order to basically help find a solution for them to get out. And Edison is definitely injured at this point, but he knows he can kind of simulate how much damage he'll take, and he knows it won't kill him. So he goes through the barrier, and I sometimes the barrier thing doesn't make total sense to me. It just seems like people can go through it and they just get a little boo-boo, but sure, whatever. Maybe coming out of the barrier is less detrimental. I don't fully understand it, but I think that's the idea. Okay, but then we cut to the big fight, and that is, of course, Straw Hat Luffy and the big guys, the big boys, Dory and Brogy, the big giant leaders, trying to escape still. We have the sandworm Gorosei basically trying to suck them all in. And it's more Gear 5th fun stuff. Luffy literally is just like, well, if you're hungry, here's a building. And it's pretty awesome. Literally just sends a building right into the sandworm's mouth, which is great. But then Luffy is out of juice because, of course, like Luffy's been, going back and forth into Gear 5th. He's run out of food or fuel basically at this point. So the giants give him this fermented shark that's called Carl, which is like a real thing in like Icelandic culture, where it's like basically it's like this really gross stuff, but it's something that's it's like an acquired taste up there. But then Luffy consumes it, and it brings him up to it makes him feel energized. It's looking like you could read it either as like he's not fully like up to Gear 5th, like he still needs like a reset time, or he's maybe holding back because he doesn't want to just immediately crap out, because that might be the case too. Either way, he tries to do his Red Rock move against Workery at this point because the boar creature is coming after them. But so Red Rock is what he used against Kaido in Chapter 1000, and it doesn't work at all against Workery. In fact, he basically is just like complaining because his hand is like vibrating and it hurts. Like it looks like he might have even sprained his hand or something because Workery is too tough. And then, so right when we see that a super powered Luffy, Luffy when he was fighting Kaido, right? Right when we see that is ineffective against the Gorosei, then we see two Gorosei kind of creeping up on our beloved Straw Hats. And so the tension is real. We see Saturn has apparently reached Usopp, Chopper, and Nami at the Sunny. Robin is probably there too, still kind of injured, but so that's Gorosei is within spitting distance of Robin. Yikes. And then Nesjuro, now these the pacifistas, has has intercepted Franky, Bonnie, and Atlas. And we have to presume Sanji and Vegapunk's corpse at this point are probably about to be there as well, based on the map we saw in the last chapter or two. And then the last shot of this chapter, we finish off with Itsumade, the guy with the big beard. He apparently sensed the voice of the broadcast and found this sort of like triangle-shaped Den Mushi. But we don't see it, but there's like a glub, 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 glub thing that he apparently notices. There's 1 minute, and it's time to speculate. Now, of course, the big sort of theory here, and it's one that my first thought, and Travis, I want to know if you thought about this too. It's got to be Vegapunk's like brain, right?
That's the answer. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's where we were told it was.
Yeah.
That just makes sense.
His Apple thing is an antenna.
Yeah. So it makes perfect sense. Now, what would be interesting, and I'm going to assume that this is why Oda chose to do things the way that he did, is that perhaps the brain can communicate. So maybe the Stella isn't completely dead yet.
Yeah, there's brain activity, but it's already been shown multiple times that the broadcast was triggered by the lack of a heartbeat.
Right. So it's very possible that what we're going to get here is a talking brain in the next panel, and that's going to require some, you got to make it a big reveal if we do that. So, So I could see why we cut that off, and so a lot of people think it's a bunch of other things. It's gotta be the brain, though. That's just, let's not make this more complicated than we need to. There's a lot of other things to speculate on in the panels just before this. You mentioned Sanji's en route to where one of the Gorosei are, but so is Zoro.
No, Zoro's on the way to the Sunny, to where Saturn is, yeah.
To where Saturn is. So it looks like we're going to split up the monster quartet into Gorosei fights, which is not what I expected at all.
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of painting over the idea of the Gorosei fighting our lucky stars here, because like Gear 5th Luffy is able to hold his own against them, and Gear 5th Luffy is Yonko level, right?
Gear 5th Luffy is able to sort of hold his own. Like he can stand up, but he can't land any damage.
He can't land any damage, yeah. In a battle of attrition, it's like ranking of kings, basically. So like you kind of just have to run away. But they can't run away. Not all of them, because Saturn's like right there. They need something to hold them off. Now, the thing that's been left out of this chapter is the Iron Giant, which the location of that thing, definitely closer to Sanji's group. So maybe the Monster Quartet, is going to have their, or I guess, are you thinking that Luffy and the two big Dory and Brogy and them, they're going to maybe run into Nesjuro? Because they're not that far behind, I guess. But they're a little far behind.
It's possible. The biggest thing is we've got Workery here with Luffy, and clearly they can't shake him. So what the heck? Something has to disrupt this. This whole
broadcast.
Segment, right. Like the broadcast seems to be the big thing, but we might not get to see that now. This might have been a fake out.
Oh, I think the broadcast is still going to happen. There's no way that Vegapunk just left.
I still think the backup is happening. Like there's another transmission somewhere not on the island. That just seems more likely now than it did when we first discussed that option. Because if it was that easy to find, it's not the only one. It can't possibly be the only one.
Yeah, and even if it's not, even if, I think that it's also just as like possibly that the Gorosei have to basically do drastic measures. Like if we get part of the message, how wild would that be? So we get part of the message, and so Oda is able to reveal some stuff, but then the Gorosei destroy the broadcast or whatever, or they destroy the lab at some point. And they're like, forget it. Like we have to get rid of Punk Records or whatever. Like how wild would that be?
Just enough to send us reeling and then take it all away. That seems very possible.
Yeah, especially if the broadcast reveals something that's so unbelievable, it creates such an issue that the Gorosei have to basically retreat and not finish off the Straw Hats. Because if they are able to hold their own and not just go down, who knows what'll happen. Like if Emu is just like, get back over here, you all messed up, you failed.
Yeah, that kind of seems like that's what it's going to take. And I know we floated that idea before, but like there's been just this back and forth of like it looks like the Straw Hats basically have this on lock, and then something happens and overcomplicates it, and then Luffy overcomes it, and then it gets complicated again, and then the giants show up, and it gets complicated again, and then we see the Iron Giant, and then the Iron Giant disappears for 4 chapters again. Like for something that big, it is really easy to lose track of that thing. I'm telling you, like.
Yeah, I don't feel like these are matchups with the Gorosei, because like the guy with the sword against, I mean, the guy with the sword is going to be able to take down Franky really easily.
Yeah,
and then Sanji against a guy with a sword. Come on, he's not Zoro.
Yeah, this feels like this is supposed to be like smaller, all hope is lost moments before something else happens, more than like, oh, we're going to do now 20 plus chapters of fights. I still don't feel like that's where we're going. It feels ever more so that we are very much near the end of this. But it's going to end very differently than any arc we've ever done.
Oh, yeah. And also, I mean, I'll admit, Saturn matching up against Usopp, I do like that because of the spider thing. And Usopp not being afraid of spiders. And I know,
I appreciate
silly,
that. Like, I appreciate that because he's a bug-looking thing and they haven't seen how big he is or anything like that. That like he's actually like, yeah, I got to do something. That kind of helps. That's nice.
Especially if we get like more God Usopp lore of like, he stood up to one of the Gorosei and the giants were like, God Usopp.
Could you imagine?
He saved Robin.
Right?
Yeah, especially because if we're going to Elbaf, right? And Robin is going to be such an important character in Elbaf. Like Robin and Usopp. It's going to be the Robin Usopp show, I hope. But like her finding all the books and stuff and then being like, you were saved by God Usopp? It would be perfect.
It would be perfect. It would be so good. And then speaking of arcs that should belong to people, let's talk about Franky just absolutely cracking a vice admiral in the skull and not even thinking about it.
Yeah. How far we've come.
It's so nice because he hasn't had like a good brawl in so long. Like he fought Wano and stuff like in the Franky Shogun, but like.
Yeah, but it was kind of a cakewalk for him because I remember he took down a Toby Ropa without. Honestly, it seemed easy for him. Like he was able to hold his own against that Triceratops dude, while also having to keep like some of the smiles at bay, the gifters or whatever. And it wasn't until I think the reinforcement showed up that he was like, "Oh, cool! Now it's a 1-on-1," and then he just cleaned that dude's clock. And it's like, yeah. It was nothing like Senor Pink, which was, such a dramatic,
great fight. Yeah, great little brawl. Like it literally left an impression on Franky as a person. It was such a good fight. But, a lot of people are going to talk about the fact that it looks like Red King was using hockey at the end of that punch. And Franky is not, because we don't have Franky confirmed as a hockey user.
Was he?
That's been some of the, so that's what's weird. And I want to bring it up.
Doesn't look like
in the
hockey
first
to me.
panel. In the first panel, it doesn't look like his fist is, got the hockey color on it. But the second panel, it does look like Red King's hand does.
I just thought that was shading and stuff.
Well, it could be shading, but I also would argue that Franky kind of like in some sort of weird way just went around the hockey coating.
Yeah, because
it looks like he punched. It looks like he punched through the unit, which is such a Franky move. He would clock a weapon like that fast. That is something he could do. So it's very, because, when people coat hockey, unless they're, Luffy, what he does, he coats his whole arm because he's stretching it, but you don't necessarily get that all the time. Not everybody, it's not like armament is constantly cloaking like up to your shoulder.
Yeah, they're not Virgo.
It's usually not. Yeah, it's not usually like drawn that way. So it's very possible that that's just a loophole that Franky has been able to circumvent. Or because we just have so much going on, we're just not dealing with that right now. I do think as these fights get harder, like hockey probably does need to start being a conversation for certain Straw Hats.
Well, I like that it takes us back to the roots of the story where it wasn't just a hockey Super Saiyan whose level is higher sort of thing. It's a, fight smart, like especially like from Alabasta on, when it felt like all the Straw Hats really had to start pulling their weight. And we had so many interesting fights because of that, because we had characters like Nami, who's going up against like a Cypher Pull agent, and she has to basically, and also when she has her big fight in Alabasta, but even more so in these lobbies, like she was so outmatched. But like it just came down to like using your abilities to their fullest, and like Franky to me is still like probably the strongest non-devil fruit user outside of Jinbei, right? Like he's got to be stronger than Brook. And I think part of it is like to what you're saying is like he's just a really good problem solver. And he's also like Brook, like an older, he's not a kid.
He's in a fight like this where you're fighting somebody else with like a technological skill here, which is that steam powered like punch effect. That's a good Franky matchup. That makes sense for him to be able to overcome.
Sanji and Zoro don't have devil fruits either. What I should say is
you know what I mean.
Non-devil fruit, non-hockey user.
Yeah, I think I understood what you were saying
but since Jinbei uses hockey, then that would make Franky the sort of Yeah,
because you have like the monster quartet, right? The really high profile folks, and then you have the rest of the crew who, like you said, sometimes have to pull their weight differently. Franky, for example, kind of has a chip on his shoulder right now because his wanted poster is the ship. It's the Sunny. It's not him. And we've all had a bunch of theories about that. But Franky's really been putting in the work this arc, even though it hasn't been the way we were hoping in terms of like him interacting with Vegapunk. He's got
he's in his element
moments, but he's in his element and he's thriving. And now he has personally KO'd a Vice Admiral. That's a bounty bump, 100%, right? Like that's now... He's earned his personal bounty raise. And I like the idea that all the Straw Hats get upgrades in different ways. I know a lot of people hate the Ice Oni thing that happened during Wano, but I think that was a very serious fight for Chopper. It was a real honest to goodness test of his skills. The skills that he actually offers to the crew, which is not turns into monster. That's never been his thing. It's just a thing he can do because this is still a manga where you have to be able to punch a guy. So seeing those skills evolve over the course of this New World journey, Usopp unlocking observation hockey makes a lot of sense. I do not think he unlocks anything other than that because that doesn't make sense. But like Nami has Zeus as a literal physical upgrade. Robin not only has her own version of Fishman Karate, but has demonstrated further mastery of her Devil Fruit. And it's very possible that reaching Elbaf will give us some kind of Robin upgrade too. These are really good opportunities to keep those fights diverse and interesting as we move on. It's not like everybody has to be a hockey user for the crew to be powerful. I don't even think all of Shanks' crew uses hockey, right? Like, we've only really seen a couple of them demonstrate it, and it's, again, the higher levels of the crew, the places you would expect them to be, right?
And they probably have, it's probably like varying levels of observation hockey, too. It's like not everybody has to use armament, right?
Yeah,
and I think it's only one aspect.
Yeah, I think it's perfectly fine for the 5 members of the Straw Hat crew that have Conqueror's hockey to just have that, and we're good. That, of course, being Luffy and Zoro, and probably Sanji, and probably Jinbei, and then Nami when they're on the ship.
Since you brought up bounties, I did want to bring up, Franky did get a pretty big bump after Wano. So after Dressrosa, his bounty raised from 44 million to 94, which was painfully low. But Onigashima, he defeated a Tobi Roppo. And I would say like a Tobi Roppo is probably the equivalent of a captain / vice admiral on the lower end. And so, you could argue that like maybe he beat whatever that dude's name was, Kazuki, I don't remember, but I'm like mixing up the names. But
was it Sasaki?
Sasaki,
you're thinking, yeah.
So, but I mean, overall, like he got a 300 million raise to 394. So that puts him as like one of the higher bounties. That's higher than Brook. So like obviously below like Robin and Jinbei and obviously the other folks, but the other top tier folks. But now, 394, like one-shotting of a Vice Admiral standing up to Gorosei. I mean, I'm expecting big bounty bumps for everybody because if this is such an incident and they are responsible for the, if we're about to find out, some broadcast that could have worldwide implications, right? I could see them all being in the billions after this, except for Chopper, of course, because that joke will never die. Chopper will end this series with like his bounty reduced, like probably.
Right? Yeah, like they'll find out he's not a pet and cut it down further, realizing that.
Yeah. But love the Franky love in this chapter, and I made my little, I got my licks in terms of the propaganda for a certain Straw Hat recruit, and I it just feels right, Travis. I know I'm preaching to the choir at this point. It's not like you're against it, but just seeing Bonnie like fighting alongside Franky, it feels right. It feels right. But
it's kind of neat, regardless of what happens with Bonnie, that the way that she has participated in this arc is very different than a lot of, I don't want to say damsels in this series, but it's kind of what's happening. Like, she is much closer to Vivi in a lot of ways, which I think may even be feeding into this like idea of crewmate status. But she has been paired off with multiple members of the Straw Hats at this point and given various levels of interaction, conversation, and action scenes. She has like, she's connected with more of the crew one-on-one than almost anybody else that we've encountered in a single arc. Like, Rebecca only ever met half the Straw Hat crew at its best, for just for a rough example. Vivi only knows half the crew in retrospect. So
Yamato didn't show up till the very end,
Yeah.
not until the last, we can't even say third. It's like the second half of Wano.
And this isn't true of just the femme characters too, in fairness, but let's be honest, we've been to a few of these islands now. There's been a princess, and, the princess needs saving. Shirahoshi's another good example. Like, eventually she meets the whole Straw Hat crew, but, like, there's not that same level of interaction that Bonnie has gotten. So there is something different about Bonnie and how Oda feels about her, at least in terms of where to use her in action scenes and such, versus many other characters who, would have never been considered for Straw Hat. So, to your point, yes, here's a great reminder that she is actually a powerful fighter on her own right. That she's a critical part of this. That oh, hey, the Marines are still very much out to get her. That's probably going to be an issue. We can't leave her here. Like, she has to leave with them no matter what. That's just a part of the deal.
She checks every box. She checks boxes we didn't know that needed to be checked, right? So we would finally have a crew member who was a supernova, a member of the worst generation before, who wasn't already associated with the Straw Hats, a kid, which has always felt, since Chopper especially, like, it's always felt like, who's our Shanks, who's our Buggy, Also somebody who is half Celestial Dragon, so you get that too. And you also have somebody who has like a kind of, also like a female person, a girl / woman, but a girl, which we felt, like there hasn't been a new girl member of the crew since Robin. So yeah, I mean, yeah. And then all the check-ins with the different Straw Hats, there's clear chemistry there. Yeah. So it just, we just continue. I'd feel like at this point, people are starting to get set on it more and more, but we'll see. We'll see, because it's Oda, who knows what he's going to do. Okay. York. I wanted to bring up York. I think, so I know I had brought up that I found it kind of confusing and a potential plot hole that York didn't know about basically like where the broadcast was, or like it sort of seemed like they weren't aware that the broadcast would happen. I think you kind of put out there a nice little headcanon, which is like, well, York said that she stopped syncing with the other Vegapunk so they wouldn't find out about what she was up to. And they don't take her that seriously because she's the one who like, poops and eats and stuff. So they probably just didn't even notice that York had no idea about the broadcast. And also it's worth pointing out that the only people in the recording who would know about what Vegapunk says in the broadcast are dead, which we also brought up as well. So like Shaka and Pythagoras, and of course Vegapunk, right? So you can't have this thing where Edison and Lilith are like, I know what he's going to say. Like, they don't know, apparently. Maybe they do because they would be synced up with Punk Records. It's kind of unclear how all that shakes out. But also, it just seems like they're not commenting on it for whatever reason.
I think, there you go. I think if York can disconnect herself, the others can too. It's very clear that this was not meant to be disseminated.
Sure.
Why Vegapunk chooses these two over everybody else is a bit curious. It again kind of leads to this, like, how much of this did he plan versus, like, is this some sort of Batman strategy? Is this just kind of him having contingencies in place?
What if I get betrayed?
It's one of those things where, like, he didn't see York's betrayal coming, I would think. But if he had, it's so weird. Everything about it, like, the more that I think about it, even right now, it's weird. he asks Luffy to get him off the island, and because this just happened in the anime, it's fresh in my head. That conversation happens while CP0 is on their way. They haven't touched shore yet. That occurs after. So, and we know Shaka calls Dragon and says, "Hey, I'm probably going to die." Like, there is still something that tipped them off beforehand. Not to what was going on, because again, there's a lot of, they don't know where to look for the agents. They don't know where Vegapunk gets taken to. Like, there's so much inconsistency with that it's hard to really divine that this was some sort of like large scale manipulation, especially with how bad things have gotten. But at the same time, something has to have tipped them off. Something has to have precipitated the need to create this message. And maybe that's just what he knows. Maybe what they learned necessitated all of this behavior.
Yeah. They found out that they have a traitor, basically. Like, maybe they found, like, oh, somebody's been communicating with the Gorosei without us knowing. We don't know who it is. And it not necessarily a satellite.
Or it could just be, or it could just literally be whatever, like, Vegapunk learned in his research that he's presumably set to reveal here. Just having that knowledge was enough for him to have that paranoia. To be like, hey, I know a thing, and they're going to find out eventually.
And the fact that, he's saying this in the aftermath, the 7 warlords being turned on, right? So he has good reason. You're like, oh yeah, the Gorosei are cleaning house right now.
That's true. And it's very interesting you bring that up, considering he is the reason the 7 warlords were dissolved. Really. I mean, there's a bunch of political factors, but the only reason it was even achievable, the only reason Fujitora was able to bring that to bear was because of the Seraphim, which we found out later. So, again, it's just, he's this very interesting gray character that makes him feel a little kind of messy in his motivations. And this may very well just be a thing where we're not going to get this answer until we get to the end of the arc. But
Leloucia,
yeah, does he
maybe
know
that's
about
what tips him off?
Yeah,
because like he sees, oh, the world government used a weapon to blow up an entire island. That is suspiciously similar to an old project that I was doing and abandoned. Or I mean, that could be the tip off, couldn't it? Especially like all the Leloucia stuff is kind of major, right? It kind of messes with the sea levels and everything. It's created a big, like, we can't forget, it's created a big crisis where people are concerned, like entire islands are disappearing. And so that's Vegapunk be like, oh my gosh, like the Gorosei could basically just
tides did
drown
rise.
The whole world.
Yeah, the tides did rise, like, permanently. We know the narrator stated that, and that would be something Vegapunk would notice information-wise, right? Like, that's something that they would pick up on. But I am also realizing in my own, kind of dumbness, again, the anime is just right there, so it's kind of refresh in my mind. Stussy was on the CP0 ship. She received the orders that the rest of them did. And we know she was in contact with Vegapunk at some point. Did she tip them off?
Stussy?
Yeah. Could she
have done
Stussy
told them. Yeah, that's a good point.
Off,
gave
them a warning.
Yeah, because it all kind of comes together, right? Especially if, them finding out like how they destroyed Lucia and Vegapunk being like, wait, that's just like the Void Century stuff. Like, that's because if it's the ancient weapon thing and it creates like, I know the theory's been around forever, right? That like basically the ancient weapons created the One Piece world, right? At Enies Lobby. And so like that single event was enough to like raise the sea levels. That's why, people have speculated that Fishman Island is like the ancient kingdom or a part of it because it's underwater, or like the whole thing with Wano, right? Or part of Wano is literally underwater. So Vegapunk being in a situation where he finds out that the Gorosei have their hands on this version of the ancient weapon, and part of the Void Century is that they've used it before, and like, who knows, like it could be him revealing like, that's what happened, everybody. Like, we're doomed, now that it's going to happen again. They're destroying islands. Uh-oh.
Yeah, there's so many different things that he could reveal. Like, there's stuff that we know that the world doesn't know, right? So we're operating with kind of a skewed perspective ourselves. Like, we've learned and discerned a lot that hasn't been like clearly put together in the series for anyone. Not just like specifically the Nika stuff, but even like Joy Boy and the Ancient Kingdom and all of this stuff being put together.
They don't know about the Noah.
Yeah,
you know,
Noah,
like what
all
was
of
the
these
Noah,
things
but
being connected. Yeah,
to bring people to the surface because of
we have these connections because we've been on this journey and we've had certain characters that are capable of like picking up on these notes and holding that information. But the world doesn't have that info, and then we also get to cut away to Sabo, who knows the biggest secret in the world. And we get to see him, disseminate that and do theory crafting with Ivankov and everything. Like, so we have that info. The Straw Hats don't have that info. Does Vegapunk have that info? That would be a very interesting question.
Speaking of interesting questions, should we read the comments?
I think that's a good idea.
Okay, well, as Modius said, I would like to see Nami Thunderbolt Saturn over and over again, like Tenshinhan Kikoing Cell. That's Tien's Tri-Beam when he's doing the, I think that would be a fun reference, especially in the wake of Toriyama's death. I think I want to see that. Pikeman said, surprised Mars didn't just blow up the whole lab. The island is already the target of a buster call. Unless he was worried that the explosion could kill him and his fellow elders, there would be nothing else stopping him. No, I think the obvious thing is that Emu is stopping them. Like, I think that they know they cannot destroy what powers the mother flame, right? Because that is a huge consequence. Because if whatever is going on with the mother flame has to do with the Void Century, it has to do with Emu's plan or what they want to do with the world, then they absolutely, like, if the world finds out, the world finds out. But, like, losing access to that is also bad.
Yeah, and York very specifically points out, like, how quickly that would become kind of an irreversible situation if he just start, like, literally like Frank Reynolds and starts blasting, right? Like, they still technically want York. They still technically want the weapon. Like, these are things that they are seeking to achieve, which kind of brings the question of the Buster Call back around to, like, that's kind of an interesting decision. But we've also learned that a Buster Call is not nearly as effective as we thought they were. So, make of that what you will. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm really curious to see what Mars does in the next chapter, because he notably does not immediately smash that snail. You would think that's like the reason he's there, and he doesn't do it. So, very weird.
Yeah. Well, I mean, pride comes before.
That's true.
I'm very grateful for this comment from Will the Vil, who said, Luffy having a hard time punching Topman Workery, whereas he had no trouble with Kaido, the Elders might have some durability feats even more impressive than Kaido, or maybe just Topman Workery himself. Two things. First of all, his name is Topman. So, like, the idea of, like, the top of his head just being particularly hard, whereas the rest of him wouldn't be, I think that's just goofy enough for Oda to, I'm just saying.
Because it's great because he's Gorbachev, right? Like, it's the scar when he's human, so, like, that becoming, like, just a big solid iron patch is pretty funny. This is, of course, one of the few situations where One Piece very genuinely just uses a thing to power scale. Like, I can't even argue with this. Like, that's what happened here.
Well, and also, let's not forget, the Gorosei have been attacked by other characters successfully. Like, Saturn was, like, pierced, like, by a sword by Bonnie, right? So it's not like all parts of their bodies are Kaido level. Like, that's not what's going on here. It has to just be a specific thing for work here, I think. And also, Saturn got, like, whipped around by Kuma, who I would say, like, is not, like, Kuma's strongest, like, punch is not going to stand up to Red Rock, I don't think. I think Red Rock is going to be a few cuts above that, in my opinion. So, yeah, I think it's just one of those things where his name is Top Man. Give it, and
I mean, he's a boar. He's going to have a hide versus, like, the properties of Saturn's body kind of being that Ushioni. So, like, I mean, different properties make sense. We already know that Workery can, like, turn his tusks into blades, so maybe that's what's going on here too. Maybe it's some sort of, like, elevated version of, like, Mr. One's Devil Fruit. I don't know.
Careful, people are going to be like, a black blade? And like, no, stop.
We already had that conversation.
An ivory blade. Speaking of blades, Lion Blade commented, considering the foreshadowing from the early portion of the Egghead arc, I believe that Vegapunk's message will get through, and that the Straw Hats and their allies will manage to escape, causing a major humiliation to the Marines. It may look as if Mars is going to stop the message, but there's something that's distracting him from doing so, which may make him either choose to not destroy the message or incapable of destroying the message. I could be wrong about this, but I'm guessing that Mars is seeing Vegapunk's brain, as Punk Records is supposed to house Vegapunk's giant brain. Hopefully, we'll find out for sure in the next chapter before the Golden Week skip week. And yeah, I think both you and I agree on the Vegapunk giant brain. I would say it's not that he's going to be convinced to not destroy the message, but I do think that it's going to be a fake out. Like, in front of a giant brain, something stupid happening on Vegapunk's part? Nah.
It would be incredibly... It would be just maybe the most incredible fake out if like we really did manage to fail at this, because again, we've been riding highs for a while now. It's like something to really bring the mood down is probably a bold way to start the final saga, but I do think people would be actively angry in a way that they have not been in a very long time if Oda gave us this opportunity to get some info and then yanks it away. I think it's too cruel for him to be willing to do.
Which is why, again, I think he's only going to be half cruel. I think he's going to give us part of the message, and then there's going to be like maybe not even half, but it'll be like most of it, but there'll be like one final thing. And he's like, the One Piece is... And then
he's not going to give it away, right? Like, there's no point in just giving it away. That's not the fun of the journey. We already know that, but
and also, and Vegapunk doesn't. I don't think he knows that stuff.
Yeah, it's just like the crumb, right? It's just the crumb, a little bit of the
creme de crumb.
Yeah, exactly. Just like there's something to give us to chew on, because I mean, we've moved forward every other aspect of the story. We might as well move this one as well.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and I'm glad we mentioned, or the commenter mentioned Golden Week, which is coming up. So we will be able to talk about 1113, 1113, once that is out on Sunday. But we will, after that, we're going to have another break, and because it is that time of the year. Fun little time off for the fine folks in Japan. But okay, Xavier Price said, 1 minute to the reveal, totally going to be stopped. Totally. Incoming flashback? I'm betting incoming flashback. Now is the time for all those hinted secrets to start being revealed. There's only so much story left to tell us. Or to tell. Tell us what the giant hat was about. I'm wondering if the elders are not just awakened, but possibly a step beyond that, like Super Saiyan 2. If anyone would be, it would be them. And Luffy eventually, or maybe that for Imu-sama, I don't know. But man, Luffy being able to go toe-to-toe with even one of them, let alone deal with multiple as well as he is, no wonder they wanted his fruit erased. I still love the idea of them being awakened Logia, and it being like mythical awakened Logia. And
I kind of like this idea, though. The idea that, like, well, we've now dealt with awakened devil fruits. What about ascended devil fruits? Now that's
Max
not a terrible
awakening,
idea. Yeah,
heavenly awakening. Yeah, you could do all kinds of stuff there. Sure,
that's an interesting idea.
More and more, I know I'm flip-flopping every single time. More and more, I'm like, I don't know if this is devil. Like, it just doesn't feel right that it'd be devil fruit stuff. If anything, I think that it would be stuff that devil fruits are based on. I think we've mentioned that before too, right? Like, okay, we have the sun god Nika, and it's a devil fruit modeled after him. But there was a sun god Nika. So why couldn't the Gorosei just be like the equivalent of like a god or a demon or something that devil fruits would necessarily be based on? Like if there was a Logia, like a model of like a mythical whatever, and it's like, oh, it's that Gorosei that they're modeled after, some kind of like yokai beast. That would be cooler to me. But especially because then you get rid of the seawater weakness, because that can't be their weakness. No thanks.
That's one of the things, like, I am not even necessarily on board with, Nika was a person. Nika, like, Kuma doesn't even believe that, really. So this, like, I think it's more about what Vegapunk hinted at, that the devil fruits, at least as we understand them, are some sort of evolutionary leap, whether that's through magic, through science. I think we're still missing some critical details on that. But the idea that the devil fruits are like the actual incarnations of beings, I think still kind of remains to be seen. I'm a fan of the idea that like Nika himself is a fictional character similar to Luffy for us. I think that that's some good meta stuff on Oda's part to, like, bring it all back around. I don't know if I'm married to the idea. I like it thematically. The bigger question is, again,
you're in a situationship with the idea.
Yeah. I'm flirting with it because I like the idea that for Kuma, this wasn't like a religious thing. Like he didn't even like believe it like a zealot. He believed it like an ideology. I think that makes him a better character and makes him a better person. So extending that to like not overwrite that by being like, oh yeah, this was Nika, but like Joy Boy, whoever that was in the Void Century, was also inspired by this character.
Yeah, they had like a Germa 66 sort of thing back then.
Exactly.
And it was just Joy Boy being like, I grew up loving this character that was made up. And then I became the character. And that's a sweet message.
That is an interesting thing. Again, not completely married to it. I think it goes either way. But really, when it comes to the Gorosei, we're still very firmly in the are these devil fruit territory at all. We like the text has not told us specifically that they are.
Yeah.
Which is weird. That's never happened before in this regard. So Oda used the text box for devil fruit and then didn't put devil fruit in there. There's got to be a reason for that. That's not an accident. You know, I think we floated before the idea that these are all extensions of Emu's devil fruit more than individual ones. That would be a reveal worth hiding all of this info for. But I don't know. It's weird. Now, again, uncharted territory.
This is a comment from Not John in the Discord, and it says, "What if Vegapunk cloned himself?" I'm just throwing out it. It's been a while since we did the clone stuff.
Thanks for reminding me about that.
I'm guessing you didn't respond because you're like, "There's no need. He knows what he did."
I've been so busy, honestly. Like.
My space. You don't have the brain space.
Like I'm still in the Discord all the time. This is just a spoiler for everybody. I see everything in that Discord because I help mod it, but I don't respond to everything because there's a difference between going that's against the rules and dealing with it and going that's just John on his high horse. That's technically allowed. Yeah, that's technically allowed in the rules, so I will let it continue.
Okay, but here's the thing. The reason I like the idea of Vegapunk being cloned or cloning a version of himself is like because we kind of alluded to it before. If his brain is still intact, right? It's just a heartbeat that went out. Why wouldn't he make other versions of himself besides the satellite? But like have a clone, like a new body. Like, don't even think of it as a clone necessarily. He just built a totally new body that could basically be connected to the brain because we didn't really get a goodbye. Like, we didn't get a sort of like Pedro moment, you know? It's not often a character just kind of dies right there. Like, when Ace died, there wasn't any sort of just like he got a moment with, he got a moment. So, I don't know. I mean, Shaka did just kind of die, but.
Well, yeah, so, again, like, side characters versus, like, you know, big Will of D moments, right? We haven't gotten that yet. Also, how does if he's dead, right, then his devil fruit reincarnated, right? Does that impact the other satellites? It doesn't look like it has. Does it what makes the big Vegapunk brain work? Like, can it contain all that knowledge because of the devil fruit? If he dies, does it lose that power? If it's still sentient and he didn't actually die, maybe. You know, it would be really funny
if he sent the brain to Dragon.
Oh, I was going to say, it would be really funny if we learned that he consumed that devil fruit like how Bonnie ended up getting her devil fruit. Where
like
he
off
didn't,
screen?
Well, no, like he didn't eat it, like consuming the fruit, but he had his brain absorb it or something. So the brain is actually the thing that has the devil fruit power the whole time. That would be a funny gag.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if we do the thing where like Punk Records floats away or something like that, which I at this point probably isn't going to happen. But like the brain could still be in the story. You could have Vegapunk still be. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe he cloned his brain. And then because that is true that like, yeah, what does happen to the satellites, right? And if they all kind of go kaput, or if they do go kaput, right? If they don't have him, or if they just aren't able to like use the brain fruit anymore, and they're not as smart, I guess. But I guess we never got like a very good explanation for how that stuff works, like how everything got split off, and if you need that necessarily, or if they were just sort of feeding into like they're all like aspects of Vegapunk, and what kind of gives them their intelligence is the syncing up with Punk Records. And therefore, you could have them still be kicking and still be fine and smart and stuff, but they would start to have to grow on their own potentially without Vegapunk. I mean, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, we know that they're able to operate as individual people. York is evidence of that. Edison, this chapter is kind of evidence of that too. Whatever self-preservation that the brain might have had is clearly out the window.
Snickersnack said, hoping Esper would also follow Bonnie due to bloodline elements, maybe, given the rest of pacifistas that are wiped out. And I would add, not just Esper, and I think that we've talked about it, I think, like, that would make sense, because I think the rule was that, like, it's if an aspect of Kuma, but also, like, Kuma himself. If Kuma continues on in the story and doesn't die yet, or at all, and isn't able to really respond or do anything, him sort of responding to only Bonnie kind of makes him, that kind of like brings those characters together of like kind of being like, Mission and the Wookiee in Knights of the Old Republic, where they're, they kind of go together. They don't, you can't split them apart and all that stuff.
You're speaking my language. Yeah, you're speaking my language. I like that idea.
KOTOR?
I think, best game. That's a whole different tangent to go on, though. I like that idea, with this, kind of like Bonnie's other ability is the ability to control the pacifista. But I do wonder if that causes not necessarily a power imbalance, but just kind of a weird thing that Oda has to try to solve as we move forward in the story, which is obviously not as far as, as if she had joined 10 years ago. But if the answer is just throw Esper at the problem, I don't know. That's almost like similar to Franky getting in the General Franky or anything like that. I don't know if I buy it, I guess is what I'm saying. I like the idea of being able to neutralize the pacifista threat and even maybe the Seraphim threat, but like taking one with them seems dubious.
The Kuma pirates with, Bonnie is their supplementer. I don't know.
That's still an option. Yeah, that's still an option. I think it's a less likely one now, but it's still possible.
Elman Eden said, Marines getting angry because of the appearance of Bonnie attacking a child. I'm not really sure what to say about that. It's not like I expected anything from any of them, but even still. And I just have to reiterate, I think it's very interesting that Bonnie was even able to do that, because if they are a vice admiral, like, clearly, like, Bonnie's ability is able to, like, circumvent a certain level of hockey. Now, we did kind of see this with Law, right? Like, a devil fruit impacted Law, and he has, like, he's awakened, and all that stuff. And so he has powerful hockey, but even he had to, like, really resist it. And still, though, like, that makes Bonnie quite a threat, because you have to be, like, so, like, hockey clutch that you can't even, like, turn into, like, let that affect you for a second, right? And I mean, we saw it affect Luffy, even though, his guard was down and all that stuff. And also Jinbei, right? Like, so clearly, like, this thing is, it's kind of a broken ability when you think about it, because all she has to do is use it, and then before you know what's going on, it's kind of like Scratchman on Pooh, honestly. It's like, before you can even realize the strategy against it, like, you've already been, like, weakened and taken off your game.
Mm-hmm. There's of course, when she tried to use her powers on Saturn and it didn't do squat. Is that because he's super old? Is that because they're weird? Again, many things we don't know.
She was like, "Oh, I'll bring you back like 100 years," and he just looked the same.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, that's entirely possible. That's right. So maybe it does work.
The Rich Master said, "Man, this is going to be great in the anime." And I think that, so far the anime has been so good, and it's looking like it's at this point right now, it's only about a year off. And what a year it's about to be, because we're going to be doing the One Piece, grand tour, the battle royale, and then getting to this moment, maybe next spring is just going to be, can't wait. I mean, just seeing the Gorosei kind of in action, especially, and like how colorful some of the designs are probably going to be, particularly like Itsumade and Nusturo. Like, oh, I can't wait. I cannot wait.
I love too that this arc has given them a lot of ability to flex their muscles. The past 2 episodes of the anime, the last one I did watch since you and I last talked about it, but most of it is original work, filling in the gaps that we didn't have for the fight with Lucci and Luffy, for example. And just thinking about all the little gaps that we have in Egghead, like the back and forth, the anime is going to get to be so creative with that. I don't know if elevation is the right word, but it is going to make it attendant viewing, even for those of us who've already read it.
Mm-hmm. And that's about it. I mean, there was other fun stuff like, some Franky love for casually one-shotting Vice Admiral, says Kaoru. And then there was like one comment, Kai was curious about like what a fermented shark might taste like. So yeah, Carl or whatever. So I did look this up. I remember Teching 101 talked about it in his video. Yeah, that stuff is putrid. Like it, and I think he described it very well. The reason it's an acquired taste is because like it really does kind of smell like ammonia. So like your brain tells you stay away from it. So it's like you are repulsed on like a chemical basis of it, and you kind of have to be like weaned in to try to like get it.
How did this become a thing that people eat?
I know, right? Well, I mean, it's
what a testament to humanity's will.
We're talking about seafaring folk who probably had rations, hunting fish in open water for days and days, and it fermented. And yeah, I mean, I found this shark carcass, this sharkus. It's been sitting here for 3 moons. Let's eat it. I'm starving.
Right.
Well, cure scurvy. Yeah. Which only makes me more and more anxious to get to Elbaf and the Atom Tree and all of that. Like, I'm so ready for it. I'm loving Egghead and all, but let's go. Let's go to Elbaf.
I get it. But like a year ago, we were still dealing with the like 1, 2, 3 punch of Stussy being a clone and like the Mads cover story ending. Like, we've been blasting through this stuff realistically. So I'm not super impatient right now. I'm just kind of like, are we gonna actually get out of this? Like, again, we're back at that seesawing of like, we're gonna actually get out of here, to it's not gonna look good. This is not gonna go well. Like, over and over again. Yeah,
and it's amazing to think too. Like, even bringing up the Vegapunk clone thing, I felt nostalgic. I was like, this is what we did for like 2 months of just like everyone's a clone. Luffy clone. Like, that was it. Okay, but I think that is
a can of worms. What a can of worms to end on.
Yeah. Did you have anything else from the chapter that we didn't get into? I mean, we didn't talk about like the Kinemon stuff, like speculating on what the favor is. Who knows? Like, it could be sort of like, hey, can you go check on my wife? Or can you go save these smile fruit users? Can you go to Ryuma's grave? Somebody needs to. Can you bring Momonosuke with you? He could use the training, it could be all kinds of stuff.
It could be taking Tama. You mentioned not going alone. There are kids that could potentially tag along.
Well, yeah, the new scabbards.
Building a new scabbards. You mentioned potentially recruiting a member of the Toby Robo. It'd be very funny if she had to like haul Ulti to the prison or something.
Well, honestly, yeah, it's like, hey, can you go to Udon first and like, drop off a couple prisoners, and then it creates this fiasco where like, like she drags the Toby Ropo around with her. Really probably just like Page 1 and Ulti become her new scabbards. Because if anyone could use like a redemption, I think it'd be funny to see those two. I guess Sasaki, whatever his name, he can hang out too. He's not that boring. Black Maria and Who's Who can, they can get effed.
Yeah, I think if you were going to turn one of the Toby Ropo into like reformed, it would have to be Ulti, right? Just come on.
Can we hey, X Drake might still be alive. We don't know what's going on with that guy.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious as what's up with that.
He's probably in Udon. Yeah. So, well, actually, no, because he helped. He probably escaped. He probably left.
Or he's hiding out there.
Yeah, he could be hiding.
He was wearing.
They find
very
him.
Convincing mask.
That would be funny, actually, if they picked up some of the Toby Ropo and Udon, and then later on she's in like Kibi or whatever, and like X Drake has been like helping protect them from like mountain beasts, and he's like, I don't want to leave.
Yeah, because
I don't want to go back to the Marines.
Right.
Yamato's just purpose. Like, Yamato's like, come with me, kid.
I mean, that would be funny. I mean, you don't want the scabbards to be all, not regional people still. So like, it could be fun if we see other characters get recruited as well. Again, we already know what Tama's kind of doing, so that's maybe not. But it would be fun to see like a new generation of like Wano samurai getting trained as well. That could be cool.
maybe Carrot
like
really did stay behind.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Or yeah, maybe a different set of minks or something stay behind. Like it, this idea of like a new generation already being set up behind Luffy and Co. would be kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of potential there, but we shall see. Is it color spread next week, or are we getting an update on that?
Yeah, so I thought the color spread was supposed to be this week. Guess not. I was looking forward to it, but that's okay. But yeah, maybe for like a Golden Week, the lead up, that could be fun.
Yeah, it could be fun. If not, if not, I feel like we're gonna find out what that favor is a lot sooner than we find out what this whole story is really gonna be about. Yeah,
I'm like kind of scanning through the chapter. The only thing we didn't talk about much was Stussy and Kaku. I mean, we touched it. I mean, yeah, they might die or get captured. I don't think it's, who knows? I feel like there's unfinished business with Stussy a little bit, but I could also see the character going out. It's within the realm.
I think it is interesting that Lucci asked Mars to spare his comrade, and he's like, man, I don't know, that's gonna be hard to do, and then like immediately did that. So there is at least the potential now for Lucci to get back up one more time and go get Kaku. And I mean, I don't see Stussy getting in the way. I see him being stupid and trying to take a third L for the arc, but I don't know, maybe we get like a last panel reveal that they got away, like the three of them snuck away. I don't foresee them going back and having this be a good thing for them. Yeah. Like they kind of screwed up even harder than they have ever screwed up before. So I don't foresee forgiveness for this lot, especially Stussy, but for the other two as well. I mean, Lucci should not have fought to begin with, and he has failed at every stage of his mission. The only thing he has done correctly to this point was give a status report to Mars when asked. So they gotta find something to do, right?
Yeah. And he also did communicate with them, right, from the control room at that one point.
Yeah, but that I don't think that earns him like forgiveness if he were like to go back. There would be like, no, hey Garlic, you want a plaything? Have a new slave. Like that's probably Lucci's fate if he goes back.
There actually is one last thing that we didn't touch on, and that was, what is Edison going to do in order to help them get the Sunny to touch down on water?
I have no idea.
Does he know that there's the Iron Giant walking around? Is he going to try to, is there a machine or device? Is there something that he could find that could, who knows? I can't think of anything like what we already know.
Could he fabricate the Vega Force 2? I have no idea.
That quickly?
I'm throwing stuff at the wall and completely missing because
could he turn
I am at a loss, honestly.
Well, I mean, he started the arc right with like the kaiju fight, but they were holograms. Maybe he thinks he can find a way to turn one tangible for just enough time to like do something.
For like do you think the light gloves? That's where the light gloves finally come back into play. That would be weird.
Yeah, he invents like a light coating. You know, kind of like what the Marines used across the comm belt. Yeah, but with light. Yeah,
it would be very. I mean,
well,
remember when everybody
they use the clouds, right? They have a machine that lets them generate sky clouds, and they already used that earlier to like bring the Brook solidified them and all that stuff. So maybe there is another kind of like way for them to generate clouds in the sky that brings them out to the water.
Does that move them fast enough though to get away?
Yeah, Brook turns them to ice.
Yeah, maybe.
It worked last time. They had to use Usopp's bamboo thing to stop the momentum.
But this time they
could work,
need to. I mean, this time they wouldn't need to stop, right? They would just need to get far enough away to land back in the ocean.
Exactly. Yeah, they've used it multiple times. It's been set up.
It's a better idea than I've got. I genuinely have no idea. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be.
I'll take your word for it because honestly, that's rock solid compared to anything I've got.
You mean rocket solid? Because they have that too. They have a rocket.
They do have a rocket.
They could just strap a rocket and do this like Toy Story. Strap a rocket to the Sunny, and then
at least we know whatever it is, Kizaru is not going to show up and shoot it out of the sky again.
Yeah, exactly. And Edison will be like, "It's falling in style." Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's it for chapter 1112. Thanks so much for listening to Rookie Pirate Radio. We'll be back to talk about 1113 And I don't want to tease or promise anything else that we might have on the horizon. We will have a break week and we might have something, but I don't know. Do you have anything to tease, Travis? I'll leave it to you. Something that a recording was not corrupted?
Not corrupted. No, I'm not going to tease it beyond that.
Okay, yeah, that's why I'm not bringing it up.
No, we'll be good. I will note, though, that we do have a lot of anime reviews incoming to the site there. So obviously we don't just cover One Piece. Definitely go check that out. We've been covering Delicious in Dungeon. We're going to be covering Kaiju number 8 here this week. And
I've been watching that.
Probably
I got my eye on Kaiju number 8.
And something regarding Loser Ranger will happen this month as well.
It better.
We'll see. Yeah. Lots of things to come. I owe a Fallout review this week as well. Like, check out the site. Don't just listen to us blab about One Piece. Trust
Fallout,
me,
really good. And also, Travis, Mushoku Tensei Season 2.
Yeah.
The second core. And it's cooking. It's cooking with gas right now. So, I mean, for all you Mushoku Tensei fans, I see you in the audience there. There's three of us total.
Jump in and talk about it with us on the Discord.
You mean talk about it with John on the Discord.
With John on the Discord.
And Hippo. Hippo's watching. All right. That'll do it. We'll see you all next time.